I request everybody to rise for the national anthem.
Janagana mana adhinayaka jaya he Bharata bhagya vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkala Vanga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchchala Jaladhi Taranga तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
In a departure from the past, I'm going to request the audience to please rise again and observe a 2-minute silence in memory of our beloved leader, former Defence Minister and CM of Goa, Shri Manohar Parrikar, the leader who started the journey of Prabodhan Manch. Usually, this time of the year is quite busy discussing the aftermath of the union budget, which comes out in February and is a hot topic for discussion. But things have changed this time. There's the hustle-bustle of the polls because they're about to kick off, and the bugle has already been sounded. So on this Sunday morning, on behalf of Prabodhan Manch, I welcome all of you today, and a very warm and hearty welcome to our speaker, Dr. Rajeeva Karandikar. Renowned mathematician, well-known psephologist, and Director, Chennai Institute of Mathematics. In continuing with our tradition, I will request Anant Panchikarji of the Mancha to please honor him with a shal, shrifar and a book. Prabodhan Manch is an AOP, Association of Persons, and it completes 3 years of its activities. A journey flagged off by the honest, humble people's leader, whose tales of simplicity have been eulogized in this past week, the Honorable Shri Manohar Parrikarji. Thanks to his blessings, we are today with about 1,500 committed audience, more than 80 donors, and we are today in our 10th lecture series talk as well. This time, you would have noticed that we did not put up our customary hoardings. This was in deference to the court's rulings and the recent activism around putting up hoardings, and this is something that we will continue to do so. Of course, this means that we are a bit challenged in reaching to all of you. Some of you may have noticed that we tried to use WhatsApp for mass communication, but that did not work out. So yes, we will try and get to you through better communication means, but till we manage that, do stay in touch with us on our email ID, check your own emails, and please make sure that we are able to contact you for all our programs. A brief introduction of our speaker of the day. Born in Indore and a graduate from there as well, he completed his master's in statistics, followed by a PhD from the Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. Thereafter, he's had postdoctoral and professional stints at Northern Carolina, professorship at the Indian Statistical Institute, Delhi, followed by a 4-year stint in the corporate world, after which he's moved to the Chennai Mathematical Institute as its director. His research interests include several areas of probability theory, filtering theory, option pricing theory, psephology, and in the context of Indian elections, that's something which is very important, and cryptography amongst others. Dr. Karandikar is the recipient of many awards and accolades. He received the Young Scientist Medal from the Indian National Science Academy in 1985. He was elected Fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences in 1994, awarded the prestigious Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize in Mathematics by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research in 1999. He's also been awarded the National Award in Statistics in honor of Professor C.R. Rao by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Government of India. However, what really made Dr. Karandikar an almost household name was when he pioneered the entire science of psephology on national television more than a decade and a half ago. He has conducted opinion polls for Indian parliamentary and state elections for Doordarshan, Aaj Tak, TV Today, Network 18, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, and currently he is associated with ABP News. So with the announcement of the general elections and campaigning by all the parties picking up, we as discerning educated voters will now try to sift through data, emotions, and decide on our ballot. But I think the real excitement for everybody is who's going to win 2019. Pundits' expectations, pollsters, betting wagers, everybody tries to give you some idea. But who exactly do we trust? I mean, do the pollsters know what they're talking about? How many people do they talk to before making their predictions? Are they really scientific in their methodology? I mean, most of us never remember having been asked for our opinion. Then whose opinion does the opinion poll reflect? Psephology, the art, science, and maths of elections, or more formally, the statistical study of elections and trends in voting, deals with these questions and is the topic of today's talk, Making Sense of Opinion Polls. And there's no better authority to talk about that than Dr. Rajeeva Karandikar, our speaker of the day. Without much ado, let's listen to him. And with a request this time, we don't generally have to do this, but I thought I'll make it. Please do switch off or put your mobile phones on a silent mode. Sir.
Many thanks for the invitation and for the nice introduction. I'm very happy to speak on this forum. I have given talks on this, but mostly to an academic audience, very few to a general audience like this, and that's an interesting experience in itself. Over the next few weeks, we are going to be bombarded with tons of opinion polls. Various channels will come out with their own, and some of them will be contradictory to each other. And naturally, the question is, whom do you trust? And are they trustworthy at all? Is it any better than just a guesswork by someone, etc., etc.? So to set the ball rolling and to set the stage, let me first start with what has been my track record in opinion polls. What did I say and what did happen? And just let me go back a few months ago to the last round of assembly elections. And we did polls for Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. Telangana and Mizoram, ABP News was not interested, and therefore they did not engage to do. In these three states, in Madhya Pradesh and in Rajasthan, our predictions were very good, very, very good. On the other hand, for Chhattisgarh, we were way off the mark. And that, in a sense, sums up what I sometimes call the power and limitations of opinion poll. So, Madhya Pradesh, we had predicted a narrow victory. In Rajasthan, also, we had predicted an even narrower victory, which earlier, 3 months before the elections, it had seemed like Congress will walk away with a tremendous majority. But as the poll was progressing, the gap was narrowing. I remember I had said on air, the gap is 1%, and actually it turned out to be 0.5%. So this 2 out of 3 very good is roughly the ratio over my 20-year history of doing predictions. I'll just recall briefly two other episodes where it was way out of very, very good. One was Assam 2011, where everybody believed that Congress is on its way out, and our data showed exactly opposite. Our means the data work is done by CSDS, Center for Studies in Developing Societies, and till 2011, Yogendra Yadav, my friend, had not yet gone over to politics, so we were doing it together. After he moved to AAP, he is of course not involved in the exercise, but I continue to do so. So our data showed Congress winning hands down, and when we were preparing thing and saying that Congress is winning an absolute majority, Yogen said, Rajiv bhai, agar aaj Guwahati jayenge to maar padegi if we say Congress jeet rahi hai. There was tremendous anger in Guwahati about Congress, but Of course, Guwahati is not all Assam. And in the end, what turned out, what we said was true. Few months later, I was introduced to the Chief Minister. I had gone to Assam for some other work, and when I was introduced that, he's the cephalogist who predicted your victory, he said, there were only 3 people who believed that I'm going to win. You, me, and Yogendra Yadav. He even said that my family was getting ready as to how to deal with this old man once he's out of power. These were his precise words. So this is the power of data. I mean, Yogendra was sitting in Delhi, I was sitting in Chennai, and we were trying to read what is happening in Assam. The other episode was the UP election, not the last one, the previous one, which Samajwadi Party won with a majority. Once again, expert opinion was that they will be single largest party but not win hands down, whereas our data showed otherwise. And we went on air saying Samajwadi Party is getting a majority. Rajdeep Sardesai on channel as anchor even went on to say that he is going to be like Congress High Command. If they get it right, credit is his, and if we get it wrong, Rajeeva takes the blame. This is what Rajdeep said on air. Well, as it turned out, eventually I was proven right. And so there are such episodes where just we were away from the pack and we get bang on where others were wrong. There are times when others, couple of times only, where others got it right and we got it wrong. So it sums up the power as well as limitation. So now let me come to the question which was put by him about people have never asked me, so who is it that these people go and ask? Why should we trust their opinion? How many people do they go and ask? In fact, every time on air, whichever party we say that is losing, their spokesperson says, yeah, but these people have only gone and talked to some 5,000 people or 10,000 people, and 10,000 people is such a small fraction of India's population, about voting population. They forget that the previous time when we were saying they were winning, they were brimming away, and then it was the others who were raising the same question. So this is in everybody's mind. Sometimes some other polls, the channels don't even talk about what is the sample size. We always talk about what is the sample size. And let's say sample size of 20,000 or 30,000. To put perspective, in 2014, there were over 85 crores registered voters and over 55 crores voters actually cast their vote. And 20,000 out of 55 crores is a tiny, tiny fraction. And natural question in everybody's mind, what can anybody claim to have judged or inference drawn based on talking to 20,000 people? So the first thing I'm going to do is to try to answer this question, and I'm going to do a small experiment. Here I have a box with me, and perhaps you can't see, but there are slips of paper folded away, and each slip of paper has a letter written on it. There are only 2 letters. It is either R or G. R for red, G for green. And and I tell you that there are only 2 possibilities. There are 99 R's and 1 G. Sorry. There are 99 R's and 1 G, and the other possibility is 99 G and 1 R. Suppose you believe me, later you can audit it. And I'm going to go and ask our host to take out one slip. So please open and read out to the audience what is the...
So I have got an R.
So you assume that this is not a fixed match. We too have not done any signaling, and I have not pointed him out to pick one particular one. And based on this, if we were to judge, or if you were asked to pick which of the 2 scenarios you think is the case, this has 99R and 1G or 99G and 1R, what would you pick?
99R.
So several of you answered 99R, some others who didn't answer, but I have done this in several occasions, different boxes, different letters, but almost always, always, whichever letter is picked, that 99 and the other letter being 1 is what everybody picks. Now, if one tries to go into what is it that went on in their mind when they picked this, if I try to engage in a conversation, some people will say, what is there? It is common sense. Yes, it is common sense. People who would have got a course in statistics sometime in the past and who remember a little bit from that, they might compute that two scenarios. In first scenario, the probability of the occurrence, that 99R1G, what is the chance that the one picked out letter is R is 99%. In the other scenario, it is 1%. And you go with the explanation which offers a much higher probability. I mean, this is what we do. This is what happens in a court case, for example. The judge weighs the possibilities, guilty or not guilty, what is the probability of whatever has been presented as evidence. And if it is, what they say, preponderance of evidence is that if under one scenario you have a very high probability and in the other it is negligible, you go with the one which is very high. So this is what we do, and there can be other explanations. There could be Bayesian statistical way of looking at it. There could be some other ways of looking at it. But this is common sense is what I will call. And this is all that is needed to understand why talking to just 20,000 people in 50 crores, out of 50 crores, it still gives you an insight. Okay? For a minute, let us regress and go back and suppose I had a bigger box and instead of 100, there were 1,000 slips. Okay? And amongst those 1,000 slips, I say now 1% is one letter and 99% is the other letter. So that would be 10 and 990. And we go through the same exercise. Pick one. Based on that, once again, same logic if you apply, you are going to go with whichever letter is picked, that being 990. Okay? So, why I am saying this? So this explains that, and it is nothing to do with 1,000. If I had 100,000, if we had 1,000,000 slips and we found one way of shaking it up and him pulling out one, same way. If 1% are of one type and 99% the other type, one is picked, you will go with whatever is that letter. So now, let's say in all of India, if we take 50,000, make all possible lists of 20,000 people out of 50 crores or 55 crores voters, all possible lists, and assume that there are only two candidates for prime ministership pre-declared. That is not the case, I know, but assume. And everybody is directly voting for the prime minister, not through a MP and so on and so forth. Or instead of political opinion, it could be an opinion about something, whether this should be done or not done. There are only two options. So instead of 20,000, I'll pick 20,001, an odd number, so that on every list, if we go and get the opinion of the people on that list, one of the two will have a majority. Either one side will have one more or the other will have one more. There will never be a tie. And I would call the majority rule, namely you go with whatever is majority on your sample as the majority rule. What can be easily shown, it doesn't need huge mathematics, it is class 10, class 12 level mathematics, but to actually compute, either you need approximations, or today's world you can need a Python programming, where you can actually count numbers without approximation. One can show that the majority rule will be 99% accurate. So the 99% of the slips will have the name of the winning entity, and 1% only will have the name of the losing entity as a majority. Provided in the whole population, let's say it is not very close, the divide is 50-48. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that even if the split in the population is 50-48, you draw a list of size 20,001 and pick one list, go and speak to all these 20,001 people, you will be able to know exactly which side is winning in the national poll. And if 50 crores voters last time, if the voting percentage goes up as well as the registered voters are more, this time 50 becomes 60 crores, 65 crores, no problem. Still, this 20,001 will do the trick. Okay. It is little difficult to digest, but for those who are interested, I've recently put up a 20-minute clip on YouTube. Just search in Google with my name, Rajeeva Karandikar, sample size proportion YouTube, and you will get the link. If not, write to me. But it's a 20-minute clip explaining what I just now said in a little more detail, little more technicality, not too much technical. So, in fact, everybody firsthand, to begin with, starts thinking about proportion. What is 20,000 as a proportion of 50 crores? And that being negligible is what people dismiss opinion polls. In fact, this is at the back of another story which is unfolding right now about EVMs and VVPAT and cross-validation. Election Commission has a policy. 21 opposition parties have filed a petition in the Supreme Court asking it to direct Election Commission to do 50% of cross-validation even before the results are announced. Election Commission policy is 1 per constituency. About 6 months ago, Election Commission had formed an expert committee with a colleague from ISI Delhi and me and another colleague from NSSO. And we have met a few times. Our report was just submitted last 2 days ago, Friday. And tomorrow this petition is going to be coming up for hearing in Supreme Court. I'm afraid in Supreme Court we won't even have this 5 minutes which I took to explain that why sample size is enough and sample proportion not needed. I don't know how it is going to go in Supreme Court. But anyway, so this is something which is even forgotten by people who have had a MSc statistics 10 years, 15 years ago, and even they have come and argued with me that, yeah, all that you say is true, but 20,000 is such a small proportion of 50 crores. So if MSc statistics folks can come and argue, I don't blame others. But if you give it a thought, see my YouTube clip, maybe you will be convinced. So the next issue is, how do we ensure that we have made all possible lists and shaken them up and actually picking one out of them, what I call random sampling. So, colloquially, the word random and the word arbitrary are kind of used interchangeably by everyone. When you meet arbitrary, instead of saying pick any, people say pick a random number. Okay. To press this point, if you look at the word RAM in our phones and in our computers, expansion is random access memory, whereas actually it is arbitrary access memory as opposed to the tape drive which used to be linear access memory. In a tape, you have to go linearly from the beginning till wherever you want to be able to read something, as in a cassette when we were listening to songs in the olden days. As opposed to on a CD, you can just directly go to a song. So it is arbitrary access memory. It should not have been called random access memory. So whoever named it had this confusion in mind, and that persists. So people have argued with me, let's say, I can't see exactly how many people are here, but let's assume that there are 600 people in the audience today. Somebody would argue that this is a random sample of size 600 of people living in Mumbai. And I would argue, no, this is not. And the other person, this has happened with me, they have argued with me that after all, if you draw all possible lists, this group itself could be one of the lists and that could be taken out. So how can you claim that this is not a random sample? So my answer to that is, whether random or not is not the property of the subset or the list chosen, it is the property of the process by which the list is chosen. Okay? So clearly, the process by which this group has chosen is those who are interested in opinion polls, those who perhaps don't live far away from here, those who did not have any other engagement this morning, blah, blah, blah. That is certainly not a random sample. So, the crux of the matter is that whatever we do in collecting data, unless we can simulate as if we were drawing all possible lists and picking one list out of that, we may be right, we may be wrong. There is no statistical guarantee. Statistical guarantee comes only when the sample is chosen properly. So, 20 years ago when I started doing this, we had worked out a methodology with CSDS and they continue to do so. I'm afraid others don't do so. It's also a question of finances. The methodology we have is we pick first, let's say, I'm talking of Lok Sabha election. So we first pick, let's say, 1/4 constituencies out of the list of 543. Each constituency we get a list of polling booths, pick 5 out polling booths in each constituency chosen. We get hold of voters list, and in that we choose 30 names. And then go door to door. Now, as we know, even when we have full address of someone, going and finding that address, if you have not gone there before, is not easy. Now, the voters list has cryptic address, so our investigators have to go and find out, search for people with that cryptic address and get their names and find them at home. We have an elaborate protocol. If they go at 3 distinct times and try to find them, you can't say that I didn't find X, so I found a neighbor. After all, they will be similar, but it's also equally random. No. Substitution is not allowed, things like that. So this costs a lot more compared to what most others do, which are like the market research agencies do, which is what is called quota sampling. And simplest way of explaining that would be they have population profile, let's say city of Bombay, what proportion are educated, what proportion are rich, what proportion English speaking, etc. Gender, caste, religion. And the investigators are told that go and find 1,000 people if they want sample of size 1,000 in Mumbai, and such that the sample profile matches population profile. And typically today what they would do is, let's say they'll pick 6 malls in Mumbai, 6 people will go, each one will pick 100 people by visually judging people to bring in diversity in sampling. By visually, gender easy, then by looking at the clothes, you can decide education level or economic level. Then by other things you can decide other parameters. Of course, it's not perfect. Then they come back, and then there are softwares which would tell you that which profiles you are in short of, and next day you have to go and look for those profiles. But even if you match on 10 attributes, there is no statistical guarantee that the 11th attribute will match. 11th attribute may be the attribute of your interest, whom they will vote for. It may be right, it may be wrong. So I have no faith in that methodology. But as you can see, that will cost much less. The efforts required on one day, somebody can do 100 in a mall. But go door to door, 10 is already a upper bound. So this is the method we have been using and has generally paid very rich dividends. Estimates that for votes which we get from here have been fairly good. So this is something I did 20 years ago once, and then for 5 years monitored that, and now it is mastered. I am no longer involved. So then the question is, what do I do? So, so here is another interesting aspect of our polling system, namely what is called each constituency, whoever gets the largest number of votes is the winner. Doesn't matter even if it is 1 vote or 1 lakh vote or 5 lakh vote, so and so is the winner, right? So what this means is that sampling can give me statewide, let's say, or nationwide, what percentage of votes BJP, Congress and their allies, etc. respectively are going to get. But that is not going to tell who is going to get how many seats. There is no magic formula, universal formula which will give me, you feed in votes and that way you get seats. In fact, for those who follow elections in India, you would remember last 2 occasions in Karnataka, Congress got more votes but BJP got more seats. And those who follow internationally would remember that Hillary Clinton got more votes, but Trump is the US president. They don't have first past the post at a constituency level, but they have kind of first past the post at a state level. Whoever gets larger number of votes in a state gets all the electoral college seats from that state in most of the states. Some states in US are different. But basically the thing is the same, that vote to seat conversion is not easy and no automatic formula. Some thought will need to be given. How the votes are distributed, and that is where I come in. Again, 20 years ago, I built a mathematical statistical model for doing this. So from our vote estimates, we convert them to seat estimates, and from there, I come out with my seat predictions. Of course, at some places, people have asked me that you are not the first one who is doing opinion polls in first past the post system. After all, UK has the same system. We derived our system from UK. And in UK, they have been doing this for years, so why do you have to reinvent the wheel? You can just call up someone in UK what they do, and you do the same here. So, first time I did this, it was for Doordarshan and India Today in print and Doordarshan on television. And they had a high enough budget, not to pay me, but to spend. So, And they had flown in Professor Clive Payne, who is a statistician, cephalologist, and at that time he had experience of doing cephalogy for 20 years for BBC. So you can't get really better than that. And we spent 2 days in the Delhi winter, December 1997, walking around in Lodi Gardens. He was staying in India International Center, and convenient to walk around in the Delhi sun in winter, not in May, but in winter. And we were talking about, he was talking about, I was asking him questions about the methodology that he uses. And he in turn was asking me questions about Indian political scenes, starting with the acronyms, hundreds of acronyms for political parties and blah, blah, blah. All right. At one point he asked me, so Rajeev, tell me, how many seats out of your 543 are safe seats? So I said, I don't understand the question. What do you mean safe? Safe for whom? So he said, safe for us cephalogists to predict even before we get any data. So I said, what do you mean? So he said, well, in UK, the movement of votes from one party to the other, what I would call volatility of public opinion, borrowing a phrase from finance, that is volatility meaning what proportion of people change their mind from a time point 1 to time point 2. So that is volatility over that period. So in UK, the volatility used to be very low. Apparently now it has somewhat increased, but in that time used to be very low. So he says, at most 5% people are going to change their mind, and if the last time the winner had like 7% lead over the second one in the constituency, you will agree, and even the parties will agree privately, not publicly, that so and so is the winner. The other are just fighting for a future. So he again asked me, so this is my safe seats. And he said in UK more than 1/3, even half of them are safe seats at that time. I told him far from that. I said at most 10% in India. And later when I talked to other political experts, they said not even 10%, maybe 5%. At most 25 seats could be safe seats, which the leaders of parties maybe go shopping around, which seat they should go so that at least they don't lose the election. So, why I said that led us to the discussion about volatility of public opinion, and that is one big departure from UK scene, and therefore his methodology in UK is not going to be just applicable in India without giving it a thought. There was another difference about availability of data. Data for him is available in UK, available at precinct level. You have the profile of the voters on socio-economic parameters. By profile, I mean what proportion are educated, what proportion are rich, poor, or you have religion-wise breakup, caste-wise breakup, the various factors which at least political experts believe do influence voting patterns. In India, we don't have that level of data. We have data but in census, but that is organized at a district level. So not even a Lok Sabha constituency level, we have this data. So these two things meant that his methods won't work and we have to start from scratch. So this is another phrase I have coined that which is relevant here, that electrons will spin in UK the same way as they spin here, but the same cannot be said about human mind. So if a model about, say, physics model is experimentally verified in UK, here we can just close our eyes and accept that as the truth. Same doesn't go about whenever there is human interaction involved. Blindly, that can be a starting point. We have to examine how we have to tweak it or modify it when it comes to Indian scenario. So therefore, I had to start from scratch. I built a vote-to-seat conversion model, and basically the first thing that I built is really stood the test of time. We tweak it a little, some information more may be available, factor that in, but broadly, that model I have been using. And I have lectured on this issue at many places, and about 5 years ago, I had written a very long article for The Hindu, and it's on the Hindu Center. You can search it by using various phrases, and if not, write to me, I can send you a link. But, so people have asked me that, is this secret, vote-to-seat conversion? I said, no, I talk about it everywhere. I have given talks at various institutes in India, and as I said, at Hindu Center, I have written about it, published article. There is also a journal of psephology, and in that I have published. But others don't disclose exactly what they do. So they could be using my methodology, but nobody has come and told me so. And nobody has told me what they use. So when we see that different channels have different predictions, there could be multiple explanations. First, their sampling methodology may not be correct. And therefore, even if they follow that methodology which is to begin with wrong, they may get different answers. Then their vote to seat conversion, it could be guesswork, it could be some other formula they are using, we don't know. Also, in many places, or for many pollsters, what they conclude is a mixture of what their data is saying and what their own or others' expert opinion is saying. Whereas we were very clear that even if our data is saying completely opposite to what experts believe, we will go with what the data is saying. We may be wrong, but we are not tweaking what the data is saying. So different people may be applying different corrections. And of course, there could be some who could be motivated or who could be, for other considerations, may want to tweak an outcome. So with all these possibilities abound, there is therefore this kind of says why there are so much variation across what various channels say. The other point, like, let's say this time around, actually, let me say that right now I don't have an engagement with any channel to do a poll. It may come, it may not come. But assume we had a thing and let's say next 1 week we do a methodologically correct poll and we come out with our analysis. Can we really say that that is what going to be what we will see on 23rd May, the day votes are to be counted? We have never claimed so. We have been very careful whenever on air that in a pre-election poll we say this is the mood of the nation as of now. We are not anticipating what would happen in the 4 weeks or in fact now 8 weeks to follow from now, or 7 weeks if we have going on air 1 week later. Because as I already said, in India the volatility of public opinion is huge. Experts believe that, and in 98 we had actually enough money to do a poll where we, in 98 Lok Sabha election, we talked to people before the first phase of poll and to the same people day after they voted respectively in their constituency. So the average gap between the two occasions was 14 days, and in our sample we saw that 30% people had changed their mind. So various events happening do have a large impact. Some statement by someone, some event somewhere, and people change their mind. Different parties have a committed vote base, but there is a large chunk of what is called a floating voter population who are going to make up their mind only as the day comes closer. And even that may keep fluctuating. So because of this factor, if we do a poll today, it can only measure what is the mood now. It's not astrology. We cannot say what is going to happen after 8 weeks. Various aspects are there. Some people claim that they are doing a tracking poll. This is, again, something borrowed from the West. So you keep sampling. We have been doing this last 6 months. They will say every week we are sampling and we are seeing how the opinion is moving. And now we are going to fit a trend, a statistical trend. And then by that we will estimate what will happen 8 weeks from now. So, but that requires the assumption that this change itself is fixed over time. Whereas all evidence suggests that the churn or the change is huge as the voting day comes closer. So I don't have a faith in that either. So I believe that there is very little we can do statistically to do a poll today to predict what will happen on May 23rd. What we can do is, what is the mood of the nation now? So we keep saying it, but the channel doesn't want to stress this. Okay? So the other problem or other aspect which is different is when we do a poll, we are doing a sample out of the entire population. And ultimately what counts is the 65 or 70% people who actually go and vote. And the propensity to vote is not the same across different socio-economic groups or across supporters of different parties. So let's say let's take the two leading parties, Congress and BJP, and if one of the parties has a higher conversion rate, by conversion rate I mean people who would have voted Congress if they go and vote, what proportion of these voted, and likewise for BJP. If there is a difference, that is what I call differential turnout, and that can be a huge factor in deciding who wins the election. And I guess all of us, from our own experiences, talking to friends and otherwise, might have either already concluded or at least would agree when I say that as you move up the socio-economic ladder, propensity to vote decreases. The more rich a person gets, more educated a person gets, the propensity to vote, that is what proportion of this class is voting, is going down. And having the elections in the month of April and May, again has an effect. You are sitting in a nice AC, there is a holiday, you are sitting and enjoying a day at your home in a nice air-conditioned environment. You may not have that much incentive to go out and stand in a queue. Maybe you make a 1 week attempt, you walk out and see there is a queue there, and you come back saying, oh, how does it matter, one vote here or there? U is a generic U. So, so this is the other one which puts a twist in the prediction. Okay? Because prediction is based on everybody's opinion, whereas there is a differential turnout. I talked about Hillary and Trump election, and why they went wrong there is very clear. They went wrong in vote to seat conversion. Popular vote to electoral college seats conversion, that is where they went wrong. Otherwise their polls were right. Soon after that followed the Brexit vote in UK, and again the pollster had egg on their face. And this time, talking to people in UK, it is very clear that that error is attributed to this differential turnout. People who wanted to stay in EU did not, they assumed that wo to hona hi hai, and they did not go out and vote in that large numbers, whereas people who wanted to exit, they went and voted in that much more numbers. So, therefore, there has been talk about one more Brexit vote, and then the answer will be very clear. The Brexit will lose. So, now to address this question, most people have resorted to what is called exit poll. As the word suggests, exit poll is, as people are exiting from their booth after voting, you catch them and ask them questions. It takes care of both the issues. You are talking to them soon after they have voted, so there is no question of changing mind. And you are only sampling from people who have actually voted. But now the problem is, you imagine that you have gone to vote. As you are coming out, someone is there with a list of names and saying, sir or madam, can you please wait and see whether your name is on my list, because if so, I want to talk to you. Nobody will wait. So this way of sampling is out of question. And then we have to resort to giving a thumb rule to the investigator. And few times, years ago, that we did exit poll, we found that while the sample profile that we get out of our methodology of door-to-door polls matches the population very well, exit polls profiles are way different, and so we have stopped doing exit polls. Given our multi-phase poll, what we were doing is, in all but the last phases, we will do a day after poll, because there is anyway enough time. And last phase, we will do whatever so that we can go on air along with the others and make out our prediction. That has worked reasonably well. So, so I covered that the predictive power of a poll done well ahead of time in India, predictive power for predicting the outcome is poor, even with the best methodology. Last point I will talk about before I close is, people have asked, do people tell you the truth? How do you know people tell you the truth? Okay. And how do you know that the investigators have actually gone and done the survey, not sitting at home, filled out a form? Very relevant. And so in this, the experience of CSDS, so even before I got involved with them in 1997-98, they had been doing on a small scale surveys to figure out why people vote the way they do. As part of, it's a social science institution, and that is one of their studies, why people vote the way they do. So they have developed experience, and so first of all, if we are going to pay the investigators, namely whoever is going and doing door-to-door interview, if the payment is on the basis of how many interviews completed, now imagine someone is going around in the hot sun and from morning, either is not finding the address, or when he finds the address, the person is not at home. It is lunchtime and he has not been able to do a single interview. He has not earned anything. There is strong incentive, kisko kya pata chalega, to falsify and fill out a form. Okay. So if you take out this incentive, in other words, you engage good people, you motivate them to go and do their work, but if they don't do, at least let them not spoil my record. Okay, if they sit at home and say ki koi bhi nahi mila, to okay, we pay them, but at least don't get a wrong result. So we pay them on a daily basis and try to motivate them to go, ensure that you go and vote. Okay. So that already cuts down this part of, there is no incentive to falsify and fill out a form. Of course, on top of that, we say that some small percentage of that we are going to cross-verify. Today we say if there is a mobile number, you get that number, you call that number. Various things are possible. But to begin with, take out the economic incentive to falsify. So that is one. Second one is, as we know from discussions in any public place, especially in a train or a bus or somewhere, where people are very happy to go on giving their views about various political events, even to strangers. So based on that, if you ask someone, do you like this PM or do you like this CM, this is better, that is better, whether surgical strikes happened, did not happen, should somebody question or not question, everybody has opinion and they will happily go and give you an opinion. No problem. Nobody refuses to answer such questions. But after that, if you ask, if election is tomorrow, whom will you vote for? Large number of people will refuse. Some may answer, but large number will refuse. Aapko kyun bataye? It's private, whatever. So we will get a huge refusal rate. Now there are two things. Some people in survey methodology, they don't ask such sensitive questions. Okay? And they try to derive voting intention based on the other questions. That is one methodology. What CSTS said worked was that we'll print a dummy ballot paper, old style. In those days, they used to make a colored paper so that nobody can accuse them of trying to manipulate elections. Today, there is no ballot paper, so we can print white paper. So old style ballot paper, we print with names and symbols, and we carry a pen, and after all of the questions are done, we tell the respondent, now go in a corner, mark your vote, fold it and bring it back. We carry a cardboard box which is sealed with paper with a slit. People are very happy to do that and put it in that. And that is the basis by which we have done our predictions, and we have got reasonable track record, is my belief that people tell truth. Okay. See, the problem with the other methodology is that what that requires is you are building a model based on the socio-economic background and based on the answers. You are building a model, and I believe that it is much better to go with what the person is answering rather than imputing a vote. But people may be doing differently. Okay. One last thing. When we do post-poll, what is the day after poll? As I said, we don't do exit poll. We will be going to people one day after they voted. So we would like to find out who has voted, who has not. So we started by asking people, did you vote? And record their answer. Invariably, we found that much larger proportion of people in our sample are saying, yes, I voted. Because even if you have not voted, to accept that I did not go and vote is a bit of negative. So, yeah, I have voted. So what we do, we ask that question, and after that we say, before asking any set of questions, few questions, we give a preamble as to why we are asking this. So here, this is a little mischievous, that the next question is to test the efficacy of the ink that is used. So you have voted, can you show whether the ink mark is still there? And they'll say, oh no, it is gone. so we record the person has not voted. And as far as prediction is concerned, we take into account opinion of only those for whom there is an ink mark. Of course, CSD has to do socio-economic analysis as to why people vote the way they do, etc., etc. They will use the whole data. But for my prediction, I will use only the one with ink mark. So there are many such small things which we have learned over the years, CSDS has learned over the years, and they are factored into doing this. And as it was rightly described, it is art and science. There is also an art and then there is a science. And it has been an interesting and very interesting journey last 2 decades. And let's see whether I am involved in this round or not. As yet, I don't know. Let me stop here.
So as always, we have time for Q&A, and we have quite a bit of time. Our volunteers are there. You've been given slips, so any of you who want to ask questions, who've sort of come up with new questions, we've got some questions already with us, sir. So I'll start by the time my colleagues get me some questions. And the first question is really around, given the scientific correctness of what you do, have political parties engaged in doing this as a exercise for themselves so that they can help you select candidates? Is this something which you think is being done, should be done, and has anybody done it? Have you been engaged with that?
So, firstly, I have not been engaged with that. And the first time I heard of this being done was in the 2014 election. It was done. 2014 election it was done, and it was tried in the previous Gujarat election by Mr. Modi, and apparently it was done by him in a very methodological way. What I was told, I was not involved, I was told was that they will go, they won't even say which party they are doing it for, and they will go and simply ask, name 5 names in your constituency whom you would like to see as a MLA, and likewise give 5 names you don't want to see as a MLA, without putting a party name. And I'm told that Mr. Modi or his team, they would go to a candidate selection meeting, and if someone proposes name X, they'll say, no, 30% people have named him as they don't want, so no chance. Things like that. So that is the first time I have heard, but I was not involved. This is all second and third order information.
So I think we keep hearing about, what are possible dominant issues in an election: unemployment, inflation, terrorism. There's also talk about the fact that issues change, like you were saying. But finally, in what you've been seeing, how much of this is a rational decision and how much of this is an emotional thing which happens in those last 8 weeks?
So all these factors do matter. They matter to build, as they say, hawa kiski hai. Okay. But the individuals, I think, are swayed a lot more by emotional decision than in the last. So this is about the floating voters. Committed voters for the parties, there will be people who would have voted one way for years, no matter what issues and what not. Okay, very strong preference. There are many like that. But the floating voters, I think, is more emotion and kiski hawa hai. So there is a tendency to go with the winner. Okay. So it is strongly believed that in 2014, the BJP victory, which was much more than what anybody had more or less anticipated, was because of this, what is called this feedback effect. That if everybody believes that he is going to win, then let me also vote for him. That tendency. So I'll digress a little here. And why I say this tendency, I have a kind of evidence to that effect. Each time we do poll, we also ask, whom did you vote for 5 years ago? Lok Sabha to Lok Sabha or Vidhan Sabha to Vidhan Sabha? It's called recall factor, and in the West, they use the recall factor to kind of apply adjustment in their estimates. What we have found is that whoever won the vote last time, elections last time, they have much larger recall rate, even if they are losing very badly now. So, for example, when Mamta came to power in 2011, 2006 CPM had won with actually more than, left front had more than 50% vote in 2006. And in 2011, people were unanimous in voting CPM out, left front out, and bringing Mamta in. But as large as 70% people recall that in 2006 I had voted for CPM. So irrespective of party and irrespective of the state, the same was in Tamil Nadu. There is always flip-flop, and recall for whoever won last time was huge, but now we want them out. So the only thing which can explain this is psychologically they're wanting to be with the winner.
So in India, people talk about 3 factors where people say these are not really great factors for influencing an election. One is caste, the other is religion, and third is money. So one, in your opinion, how much of does this play a role in selecting your sample, and how much of does this play a role in actual voting?
So in my sampling methodology, it plays no role. We don't look at caste, religion, etc. Firstly, the voters list doesn't list these, number one. And we simply, blindly, foolishly, as some others may say, go with randomization and pick the respondents randomly. Okay? As far as in election it influence, it does have, but difficult to measure what influence it has. I somehow feel that the analysts tend to overestimate this influence, as if everything is decided by caste and religion. To give you one bit of thing on this. So, let's say if we ask people in the audience, I'm not asking, but if we ask, what do they think, what percentage of Muslims voted for Mr. Modi or BJP in 2014? Given all the rhetoric and all the thing about Modi, okay? You'll be, I mean, of course, this data is only from an opinion poll. Actual poll, you cannot say who voted for whom. But from our opinion poll, our estimate was that 10 to 11% Muslims voted for BJP. Given that the overall population, the proportion was just about 30-32, 11% Muslims voting is a very significant figure. Many people say that no, kuch gadbad hai aapke isme, 1-2% hoga to hoga, usse zyada ho hi nahi sakta. And actually this number had gone up from the Vajpayee era. Vajpayee era, this number was 7. And interestingly, as a percentage of BJP vote, it was roughly same, roughly 1/3. If overall was 21-22, about 7% Muslims voted. Now overall 31-32, about 10%, 11% voted. So, whereas listening to the endless debates on TV, people will conclude that no Muslim will vote for them, right? So, I think the influence is overestimated, but one can't deny that there is influence.
So, just a question from the audience, and how does Nota impact prediction, and do you get a sense of it before the elections as well?
No, we don't get there. See, the thing is, I would have liked, I have suggested at a few forums, that Nota should be given teeth. Right now it is toothless. Whether you go and vote Nota or do not go and vote, absolutely no difference. Okay? So, the least that could be done, I have spoken about it in a few forums, that if a rule is made, that if Nota is the winner, that is the largest number, the Nota is more than the winners, the next, the highest votes for any candidate, then that election is declared null and void, and all the people who have contested, they have been rejected by the public, they should not be allowed to contest next time around. If they do this, this is giving teeth to Nota, then the parties would be careful that, if all of us select bad candidates, people can swing back and give us a resounding slap on our face. Today it is toothless. Suppose even if 50% is Nota, out of the remaining 50, whoever gets the largest vote becomes a representative. So there is no teeth.
So I think a couple of questions have come. So could you just elaborate a little bit on when you said how you randomize your sample?
Okay. So a lot depends on what we say, how is the sampling frame available. Namely, is there a master registry of all voters in India? And if so, how is it sorted out? Is it arranged alphabetically? It is arranged what? Etc. etc. So actually there is no such list. It is organized as follows. You have constituencies, you have polling booths, and then in each polling booth you have a voters list. So that is how we do what is called multi-stage sampling. First we select constituency, then we select a booth, and then we select people. Now, let's say everybody would have seen their own voters list, okay? And one thing you would see that your entire household, all the names will be together most of the time. If one has gotten added later, then it will be at the bottom, but otherwise, typically one household will be a cluster. Then your neighbors would be just before you or just after you. Your building will be a cluster. And if it's a multi-building society, the next building will be another cluster, etc. So proximity gets clustered together. And if in urban areas like in Mumbai, when you go to vote, typically it may be a school where there may be 8 or 10 different booths. They will have numbers, and you would go to booth number 143, and you will see that people living in your vicinity may be going to 145, 147, etc. So one locality is like a cluster of names. So because of this, what we do is called systematic sampling of booths. That is, out of all, let's say we want to pick 5 booths and suppose total booths are 1,000. So we'll pick one number between 1 to 200 and suppose it is 133, we'll get 133, 333, 733 like that. Add 200 to that and that will ensure that different parts of the city are covered. If there is a Jhuggi Jhopdi cluster and a rich multi-story cluster, both will get represented. So that is how we put booth, and then likewise systematic sampling from the polling voters list.
So in the beginning you mentioned about some places where you got it very right and some places where you probably got it wrong.
Yeah.
From the ones where it went wrong,
Yeah.
is there any learning? Is there anything which you realized why it really went wrong?
So here there are 2 types of error which play in the final outcome. One is the error in vote estimation and the other is what I would call model error or error in vote to seat conversion. And when both go in the same direction, let's say they have overestimated for the party, one party, and my error is also in favor of that party, then 2 errors get added up and it can go wrong. But there have been times when they overestimated and my model underestimated and we actually got it right and we got accolades, whereas both of us have made error. That also has happened. A few times has happened that it is like in the Chhattisgarh one, which was the worst ever for us. We have not been able to explain why it happened.
So you spoke about the modeling, and therefore a question which came up was that I think Pranay Roy popularized the term of index of opposition unity. And then you also have this thing about parties doing pre-poll or post-poll alliances and transferability of votes. So how do you factor in these aspects while doing your modeling? So
one correction, Pranay Roy did not popularize index of opposition unity. That was done much earlier. There used to be one Mr. DeCosta who used to do analysis with very little data for Times of India. Okay. Pranay Roy, on the other hand, popularized the phrase swing.
Swing, yeah.
Okay, that is change of percentage of votes for a given party from one election to the next. The difference is what is called swing, and that was popularized by Pranay Roy. Now, as far as, it does have an influence, and my vote to seat conversion model definitely uses but it uses a lot more data. Index of opposition is an index built out of a certain information. I use all that information and not just index of opposition unity. For my prediction model, pre-poll allies, I will treat as one entity. So, for example, in Maharashtra, I will just say Congress plus and BJP plus for my prediction. So, it doesn't matter whether there is a Shiv Sena candidate or a BJP candidate, likewise whether NCP candidate or Congress candidate. So, we will look now. Maharashtra, it is easy, for example, now because last election and this election allies are the same. So, there is no twist in the tail. But when it comes to, let's say Bihar, so Andhra Pradesh, where there can be new parties born, there can be split in a party, or there can be alliance changing sides. It was in Tamil Nadu once where DMK was with Congress and ADMK was with BJP, and in the next election they switched sides. Okay? So at such times, it is a challenge in my vote to seat conversion model, and we have to use, that is where the art comes in. We have to figure out, what percentage of votes is this party's and what is that party's and how they were distributed. So we may use the history data to do this attribution, but this is the art. So it needs to be factored in.
So a question again in terms of the role of media and now with the increasing role of social media. How have you seen this change? What does this do, especially coming into the last 8 weeks of election? And what's your view, especially with the rising influence of social media in urban sectors? Yeah.
So firstly, overall media, let me talk about. As I said, that there is a tendency to go with the winner, and winner is you don't know who is the winner, you are only going by what you are hearing on the media. So certainly there is a strong feedback effect, and that is caused by the media. And that parties know. So they would like to influence the coverage to be in their own favor, number one. But if we go back and let's say, for those of us who are old enough to recall the election in 1980, That was the election after the Janta experiment failed and Indira Gandhi was fighting to come back to power. And as far as I know, that was the first one where a systematic nationwide opinion poll was done by Pranay Roy for India Today. And they came out with Congress coming back with a big majority, and that is what happened. But at that time, I still remember, I had interest in this even from those days. I was still, at that time, a student. There used to be an 8-column headline in the national newspaper. Congress to win so many seats. Then the next line will be, this is the thing by Pranay Roy, by blah, 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 blah. Okay? Now, if you roll back today, even if a newspaper has engaged me to do a poll for them, it will not be a headline, it will be bottom half, and it will be a 2-column headline with a 2-inch write-up on that. So in that sense, role of individual predictions on the population or the feedback effect has dramatically reduced because there are tons of opinion polls and hey, this one is saying this one is saying this, we don't know what it is. So this is the effect of opinion poll. Overall impact of media is very much there, and that is why the parties are vying with each other to do whatever they can to get maximum mileage out of that. Social media, of course, played a role in 2014 and hugely in favor of BJP because Congress was missing in action on social media in 2014. In 2019, both sides are present. And they are maybe cancel each other out, who knows. But we must remember that the direct impact of social media is limited because it is English-speaking, relatively richer group which is accessing the internet regularly, blah, blah, blah. Now, of course, with WhatsApp reaching much larger population and false and right messages being pumped on WhatsApp, what impact it will have remains to be seen. But yeah, effect is there, but there is very little way to control it.
So, sir, a related question, but in your field work, with digital becoming so important, is there a way of making this whole exercise of psephology more digital? Is that a possibility?
Yes, possibility is there, but there are challenges. So firstly, let's say in UK, US, and now some pollsters in India, they do telephone survey. Okay, so they will randomly generate phone numbers and call people. They may send electronic questionnaires, etc., etc. But then you are not, wherever the other side also has to take an initiative to respond, the thing is already gone for lopsided responses. And so at least I don't believe in that, this method. There are other ways. So people say, oh, they will go instead of recording people's responses on a piece of paper, they are going with a tablet and ask people to just punch. And if they don't know, then we can help them in punching. So all that will help is that the data collated and processed faster. But that is not really the bottleneck. Bottleneck is going to the people is the bottleneck. So it may change over time, but I don't see at the moment the digital revolution giving any advantage. In fact, a lot of people, including my friend, IIT Madras director, he says, oh, you are still living in 20-year-old world. You grow up, use digital. I said, it doesn't give me an advantage, so why should I go for that?
So, slightly different question, but being a statistician and a psephologist, have you studied the behavior of the Satta Bazaar, the betting markets in context of polls? And two questions here. One, a lot of people believe they give a good idea. And two, depending on your opinion, do you think we should actually legalize the betting market so that it just comes above ground?
Okay. So let me answer the final one first. That yes, because making something illegal has never stopped anyone. Only illegal activities around that increase. That is in general. So as far as making it legal is concerned, yes, at least I think so. But what they do, difficult to say. But my response I will give by one episode. So this is, I talked about UP 2012, where everybody believed SP and largest party but not winning, and our data was showing otherwise. I was already in Chennai, and the earlier phase data, this was a 5-phase election, earlier phase data was with me, and on the last phase of election, when we will be going on air in the evening, I was taking a flight from Chennai to Delhi. So on the flight, I had the newspapers, and they had given the Satta market rates. And essentially, I knew what most other channels are going to predict. And that is what happened. But this is my observation. I am not attributing anything, but I think it has an impact in way experts make up their opinion. And therefore, when people try to mix their opinion and data, etc., it has an influence. But I have not gone with that ever. We have, as I said, almost foolishly, we have, that's what Yogendra used to say, that we are foolish enough to just stick to our data. Even if we are wrong, we will stick to our data.
So coming to another topic which has been of interest recently, do you find any distinctive trend when it comes to national versus state level voting? B, is there any reason why one could influence the other? And then a third question related to it, which has been a hot topic recently, is should you combine if possible?
Okay.
So
First, there have been times when not nationwide, but a few assembly elections are held along with parliament, like Andhra now, and at least from the time I started analyzing, at least one or two occasions of Orissa, one occasion of UP that I remember. And these are states where there are national parties in the fray and also regional parties in the fray. And one picture emerges is that even when people go and vote on the same day, regional parties get a higher percentage of votes in the for the assembly, and national parties get relative to whatever. So if Congress has got X for national, they will X minus something for local assembly election. Likewise, if SP or BSP have got Z for the national, they will get Z plus something in the assembly election. So there is, this impact is very much there. So our so-called illiterate voter does think on larger questions, and even on the same day they are actually making a difference, number one. Now the third question about combining the two. I am all for it, and I have been participating in various discussions, not policy making discussions, but in Chennai, some groups here and there. And one reason is expenditure. Other reason is, otherwise the country is always in an election mode. Anything you do or do not do is to be interpreted in the next election coming up, which I don't think is a healthy thing. Expense is the other aspect. But then there are practical difficulties which need to be resolved. Namely, you have tied the two election, and then a state government loses its majority in the assembly, and nobody alternate is able to put up a majority. Then what happens? So these questions need to be answered, and so on. So there is an answer. Apparently in some European countries, there is a way where you simply cannot bring in a vote of no confidence against the CM or PM. So you can't say that this house has no confidence in Mr. X or Miss X, whatever. In the same resolution, you have to say no confidence in X, but have confidence in Y. Unless you can bring in a replacement, you cannot vote out an incumbent. And with that, you can ensure that every house, so it will still need an assumption that after election, somebody or the other is able to cobble up a majority, which I suppose they will be able to. But then there are hurdles. I mean, it will need, I'm not sure whether constitution needs to be changed, but the Representation of People's Act would need major modifications. And as is always the case, again, irrespective of the parties, if the government of the day is for it, then the opposition is against it. When they change sides, they may change sides again. I mean, we have seen several times the same thing happening. So, therefore, a constitution amendment to this effect will be very, very difficult.
So, couple of states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan have always had the government change in a state election. And we also have this whole thing about anti-incumbency as a big factor. So, one question, one, is anti-incumbency or incumbency a very big issue? And second, are issues like this very particular to some states and not at all to some other states?
Yeah, it is an issue. But firstly, again, I have said it on air once, that what people call anti-incumbency, I call anti-incompetency. So there is no reason for people to vote out someone if he or she as a chief minister is doing a very good job. It is when people perceive that the job being done is not good is when they vote against. So that is what my take is, number one. Number two, yes, some states it is regularly a case, but perhaps it is because people either expected more or the respective chief ministers did not do a good enough job. Tamil Nadu, of course, defied it last time. Jayalalitha won as a sitting CM. So it does have different impact across and different states. It is again because how people are perceiving their respective state governments. Interestingly, Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan lost MP in spite of being very popular with the populace. So it was, whatever you may say, the party label or the local candidates, anger against the local candidates who are renominated and not in anti-incumbency against Shivraj Singh Chauhan that defeated BJP in MP. So it's a mix of various things, but also more often than not, the vote is more a negative vote than positive vote. So you don't want X, so you go whoever you think will be able to defeat X. That seems to be, so the last time BJP's victory 2014, apart from Modi's campaign and this and that, a large part of its attribution was that people wanted UPA out. And whoever they found is a viable alternative, they voted. This time, if there was a viable alternative central figure, we could have seen a repeat of that. But the viable alternative, at least with how many weeks still to go, first vote,
3 weeks.
3 weeks still to go. It's not clear who is that alternate thing, and we'll see.
And since you've sort of laid the trend, I'm going to ask some questions which are now not data related, but a little bit more on emotion. So, but the first one again, a little bit data. Some of the states, in northern India, we've seen Congress losing not too much of the vote share, but not getting seats. Similarly, in the south, BJP has consistently scored decent vote share. Kerala is a good example, but never won seats. So, is there a magic number? X percentage you cross and you start getting seats, or X percentage you drop,
No. It is the magic number is not about the percentage of votes, but about how they are distributed across the state. So let's take an extreme example. Let's say there are only two parties, or in Maharashtra there are only two alliances essentially who count, right? Now assume that one of the two, doesn't matter which one, everywhere gets 51% vote, and the other one everywhere gets 49% vote. So with 51% vote, you can win them all. Or, even more extreme, let's say in 1 plus half the votes, you get 1 plus half the seats, you get 1 plus half the votes. So you will win a majority, though you have had only 26% of votes. So, one can say today that, without any data, I can say that, let's say in the next election, Congress and BJP nationally get the same vote percentage. I know it is not going to happen, but assume so. Then I can close my eyes and say that BJP is going to win more seats than Congress, even if they equal their vote percentage nationally. This is because Congress vote is spread, not exactly uniformly, but spread across all regions, whereas BJP's is more concentrated in north and west, and their presence in south and east, even if it is there, it is at a lower level. So if nationally they get same vote, that means that north and west they are going to sweep. So a lot depends on how the votes are distributed, and the vote to seat conversion model has to factor in all these things.
So, sir, I know you mentioned 2014 being a wave, and there are other people who've talked about 77 in the past, 84 as well. As a psephologist, do you get a sense of a wave beforehand? Is it something which you start sensing in your data, or when does it become very apparent that there is a wave this time or not?
Yeah, so 77 or 84, I was still not a psephologist. But 2014, not only I was, but I was actively involved. And at that time with CNN IBN, they had funded repeated polls. There were some state elections as well as nationwide, at least 3 or 4 what we call the Mood of Nation polls, sequence of them. And what we could see was that consistently, whatever was the level in the previous poll of ours, the BJP poll votes consistently were going up across. So in South, there, to begin with, it was low, but it has gone up. In North, it was higher, and it has gone even higher. So in 2014, by this time of the year, the polls were exactly same time. So by end of March, we were completely sure that there is a wave, and that there was no doubt that they are going to win the election. Still, we could not or did not say 330, but we were certainly confident over 250 for sure, and most likely beyond the majority mark. So where one can sense If we have had enough data work as a sequence, then one can sense the wave. We can also sense the answers and how consistent they are across regions, etc.
So 2 questions from outside of India. One, you did talk about the UK model, etc., and you explained some bits of it. But a lot of the other democracies, vibrant democracies, have 2-party democracy in a big way. Is that what makes it even tougher in India to do a cephalogist's job, or is it any different because of other factors?
No, it's a bit tougher, but I don't think that is the real challenge, that more than 2 parties. It is the non-availability of data at booth level or even at a constituency level of the socio-economic profiles. That is one which puts a limitation. And second, as I said, is the volatility of public opinion. That is the ground reality.
So since you mentioned, there's a question from one of our audience which says that, the volatility and the differential voters probably matter in constituencies where margins have been narrow, right? So have you seen where, suddenly in one election, the entire volatile vote has gone to completely somebody else? It's been siphoned off by some new force, new idea.
Delhi and AAP was the example. They stole all the votes in Delhi, right? So, in fact, my friend Yogendra, who by then was already a political party man and actually an AAP member, in one of our television shows where I appeared and he also appeared in different windows from different locations, and this was, to put the record straight, it was somewhere around November 13. Okay? So well before the first Delhi election also. So people were talking about wave and the Modi magic, etc. And he said that, let us be clear, it is anti-UPA, anti-Congress sentiment, and whoever is able to project as a viable alternative is getting this support. He says, in Delhi, we have been able to do so and we are getting the support. Nationwide, Mr. Modi and BJP have been able to do so and they are getting support. I'm sure his party men may not have liked this comment saying that, we are getting support only because we are an alternative to Congress and not because of what we are saying. But that is what he said, and I strongly think that way, that if there is a wave of some kind, okay. So for example, leading to the UP poll last time, people believed that the demon is going to derail BJP. In fact, all television debates kept talking about demon as the demon, right? And we had an inkling of that this is playing no role, because in our one of the questions is, which of the following, or name 3 factors which you think will influence your decision to vote. 1% of people recalled demon as a factor. So it was the same: sadak, bijli, pani, development, unemployment, corruption, etc., etc. Demon was no issue. So people do talk about waves, but it may be there, may not be there, and we can get but one side walking away with the change vote. I mean, even let me speak again of 98, when Vajpayee's government came into power, and we had observed this 30%, as I call the volatility across 6 weeks. But the 30% people had changed votes. Net gain for BJP was 4 to 5% out of this, which meant that if you say 5%, so 30 minus 5, 25. So 12.5% of people who had said they are going to vote BJP went the other way, and 17.5% came this way, giving them a net gain of 5%. So it was not one way.
So coming into some of, as we are probably going towards the end of the questions. So one, yesterday when we were having a cup of coffee with you, we were discussing, and you spoke a lot about, this hot topic of EVM rigging. Could you just throw light on what's your opinion on that, what you've seen, and why you believe what you believe about EVMs? Okay,
so first of all, earlier my opinion was based on only what I may say hearsay or reading in the media. But because 6 months Election Commission engaged us, we have had detailed discussion about their entire process and the technology and everything around it. And contrary to what is written in the media, and some people write, but then depends on each one believes what they wish to. So first of all, there is no networking on the EVM. There is no software. It is only a counter. And centrally doctoring it, or somebody taking a mobile or and influencing the thing inside, is all Also, there is a very credible group of 4 or 5 experts. All of them have been professors at IIT in the relevant discipline for the years, and one of them I know personally, Professor Rajat Moona, who was CDAC director in Pune and now is one of the IIT directors. He has been there, and just 2 days ago my colleague Abhay had a meeting with all these people and said that these people have had 100 meetings in the last 1 year and examining all aspects there. Second, this committee was not appointed by this present government. This committee has been in place for over 12 years. Okay? So, technologically, I don't see. The next question is, can it be tampered after the voting is done? Now, first of all, we all will very easily believe that, in the olden days, if they can get access to the electoral box, it was very easy earlier time than today. If you could get an access to the voting ballot box, then anybody could take out the votes and stuff it with whatever votes you want, paper, print, stamp paper. This one would require a technology savvy person to actually open up and tamper it without being discovered. Okay? So if somebody can get their hands on a machine after the voting is done, all bets are off. But then there is an elaborate process. Even with this digital age, they still go, and after the voting is done, they will seal it in a gunny bag, and then they will tie it up, then they will put a wax seal on that, everybody will sign on that paper. All that rigmarole is still there. So, if anything, I see that all the allegations, etc., have not been substantiated. When EC asked them to had an open day that you come and do it, people said, no, we will not do it in camera, we have to take it away. Now, if I take away your phone, I can make it say or do anything I want. You give me for 1 hour and I can make it do anything I want. I can just reformat the whole thing, right? So, that is not the way. But, so therefore, to begin with, in the allegations, I find no substance. Now come to the statistics part. I won't talk about part which is in my report because that is sub judice, which will come up at Supreme Court tomorrow. But something which is in public domain, that last 1.5 years or 2 years, all polls have been done with this VVPAT technology. And in every time, Election Commission has mandated that one booth out of every constituency is picked at random. I asked them, how do you do it? Because कहना तो ठीक है random, what do they do it? So they actually write down booth numbers on a slip of paper, 1 slip per paper, and per booth, put it in a box, roll it up, and in presence of everybody ask one person to take out one. And then that is picked and then cross-verify. Over 1,500 such cross-verification have happened, and they have matched perfectly in all times. So as a statistician, Bayesian, if one goes by that, this is a strong statistical evidence that there is no tampering.
Thank you, sir. So I think there was a question, I skipped it, and I was reminded by my colleagues. And there's also this thing that gender also has a very big role to play, and women voted this way and the men voted that way. Is that something which you see? Is it a part of your models? And
it's not part of the model per se, because my model is how many percent are voting for whom. But when we do the socio-economic variable background analysis, one very interesting fact emerges. So traditionally, there was always a gender gap for BJP. So whatever be their level, amongst men it was 1 or 1.5% higher, amongst women 1 or 1.5% less, so 2 to 3% gender gap. And it was consistent. If it was 20%, there is a gender gap, it goes to 30%, still there is a gender gap. Except 2014 and subsequent elections, it has worked the other way. So in 2014, it was an equalizer. Across genders, more or less the BJP vote was same. In fact, in 2014, except for religion and caste, other rural, urban, educated, uneducated, gender, all these variables, it was like uniform. Same across both the groups in 2014. After 2014, in the state elections, actually BJP has got more votes amongst women than amongst men. So the trend is reversed here. On other variables, the trend is reversed in the traditional way. So BJP gets more amongst more educated, more amongst urban, etc., etc. All the state elections which have followed. So the gains made in 2014 in equalizer, they have not been able to sustain. But The gender one has moved the other way. All this we can get only from opinion polls, not from, and I do trust CSDS data a lot, and this is from the CSDS data.
So last two questions now. So this is one which we always ask all our eminent speakers, and therefore I'll ask you as well. To an audience which I don't believe is a random sample as well. These are all friends, so they are probably biased in one way or the other. And therefore, what is that one message you have for this audience today, sir?
One message. Okay, about opinion polls. So, don't put too much weight on it, number one, because the channels try to say the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, which is far from the case, number one. Number two, when you are trying to look at, which one you think maybe you want to go with in your belief, look at the track record. It's like astrologer. If 20 astrologers make a prediction, one of them is going to be true. Doesn't mean that there is something necessarily true. So, go with the track record of those who have been in the thing for long. And one agency which I would like to single out, that when, after my own poll, everybody is going on air. So which one is the first one I wanted to find out what so-and-so is saying. So that was Nelson, AC Nielsen. Last 5 years or 7 years or 5 years, they are told that they are walking out of this space. They are not doing any polls. And I have just heard 2 days ago that they are back in the realm. And in fact, ABP News is not engaging me, they were engaging AC Nielsen. But though they are competitors, I said the next, what I would say that at least whatever is their data saying, they are going to put out the data. Their vote to seat conversion may be off the mark. Their sampling may not be all that correct methodologically as per my thing. But at least whatever is the data, they will say. About others, I don't know. So they are the ones whom I would take the most. But one message is that, okay, look at the track record. Everybody asked me after 2014, you claim you got it right, but Chanakya got the number perfectly. What do you have to say? And my answer was that I will not comment on an individual outcome. I can engage in a debate on methodology. As a finance people would say, I mean, you could never, just because your competitor made more money today, doesn't mean that you junk your method and go with his method. You can debate and discuss, but you cannot go with individual outcome, but only about methodology.
And therefore, sir, the last question, which is why I think the audience is here, and we want to hear from you. Who's going to win 2019?
So, as I already have made several disclaimers. One, this time I have not yet engaged in any poll, number one. Number two, even if I had, there will be what I can say is what is the mood as of now, and there's still a lot more time left. So how things evolve will matter a lot. So what I will say is that I have had access to some other data, I mean other people's poll data at different levels, and based on that and talking to various people, now that I am in this business for 20 years, lots of people talk to me also. My assessment is that at this point of time, the chances of Mr. Modi coming back as Prime Minister are like at least 70 to 75%. About 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, I would have bet 50-50. So the various events in last 5 weeks have moved the thing. Right, wrong, I am not commenting. Who did right, who did wrong, nothing. It is my assessment based on the data and the feedback that one gets. And but still there is time. I mean, both sides are capable of making foolish statements, and one foolish statement can turn the tide. So therefore, I'm not saying that this will sustain next 5 weeks. It can. At this moment, I don't believe that they are anywhere near what they were in 2014. So forget 339, even 300 at this point looks like a distant dream for NDA at this moment. And when I say 75% chances, I'm saying I'm counting as NDA getting more than 250, because then they'll make up the remaining 20 odd seats is not a problem. Okay, so my 75% probability is for NDA crossing 250. And I put very little chance of them crossing 300 as of now.
Thank you, sir. It's really difficult to imagine how a topic that's so technical, complex can be made so interesting, lucid and easy to understand. So very big thank you to you, sir, Dr. Karandikar, for coming down from Chennai and Thank you, sir, for coming down from Chennai. Thank you, madam, for coming as well and making the time to come with sir today. And really, at least if nothing else, I guess next time somebody makes some wild guesses, this audience will be much better informed and probably be able to call out their guesses as being guesses and not really being technical enough, thanks to your elucidation today, sir. I'd like to propose a vote of thanks now. A special thanks to BMC, and this time to the manager of Dinanath Mangeshkar Hall. Just a week back, we were quite tensed up because we got to know that the Election Commission has asked for this hall for their duty and their training. But the manager was helpful and assured us that generally speaking, this doesn't happen on Sundays, and he'll protect our program. So thank you, BMC. Thank you, Dinanath Mangeshkar Hall. Thank you, Tendolkar ji, Sairaj Publicity, for your banners and backdrops. Vastu Shobha for all the arrangements. Avinash Paradkar for the sound. Thanks, like always, Parag Ravani ji, our elected representative. Parag, I must say, it's always a pleasure to see you finding time and coming for such events. Big thank you to you. And as always, a very, very big thank you to you. I mean, to see more than 600, 700 people on a Sunday morning make time for something which, like Professor said, is not really something which is going to be of probably very big interest to many people. But thank you again, audience, for giving us the encouragement. Thank you, our donors, for keeping this going. And therefore, a very big thank you to all of you. Keep your support going. As I said, we have a little bit of technology issues. We'll try and get one permanent WhatsApp number and get it across to you. Till then, we have a Facebook page. We have our email ID, prabodhanmanch57@gmail.com. And the one thing which I would just like to say, because the audience in Parla is, like Professor said, a little bit upwardly mobile in terms of socio-economic trends. Let's not, at least on this one, prove his prediction wrong, and let's ensure 100% turnout on 29th of April. So with that, we will close this program with a rendition of Vande Mataram.
Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujanam Sukhala, Malayaja Shitala, Sasya Shyamala Mataram, Vande Mataram, Shubhra Jyotsna Pulakitayamini, Pullakusumita Drumadala Shobhini, Suhasini